Knowing what you now know about the brutality of being a woman in Australian public life, would you encourage any rational young female to make this their career choice?
Absolutely, I would. And I thank you for the question, because really it's one of the main reasons I wrote the book. I think we need, in this country, with all the challenges of this century, the best and brightest. And to get the best and brightest, we've got to make sure we've got just as many young women as young men putting their hands up to join political parties, to stay in them long enough to get pre-selected and then to go on to those sorts of jobs. I called my book Through the Wall because, when you go through the wall of, something like that for the first time, and to be the first, of course you get some scratches and cuts on the way through. I don't want you and other young women like you to look at the scratches. I want you to see the hole in the wall and jump through it, because, it's absolutely critical to the health of our democracy. And, weighing up, everybody in public life, male or female, anyone in political life, one of the great things about our democracy is we're allowed to criticise our politicians all day long. We're allowed to put irreverent cartoons of them in the newspaper. That's what our democracy is. And it's not much fun being on the receiving end of it sometimes, but it's vastly outweighed. That discomfort is vastly outweighed by the opportunity you get to shape the community that you're part of. And, that opportunity to be part of the decision-making, to decide, what is the direction that you want to take, a state or your country. It's a white-knuckle ride, but it's the best one you'll ever have.
Tony Windsor, you were up close to Julia Gillard during that white-knuckle ride, and you saw what she was subjected to as a female Prime Minister. Would you advise a young woman to take that path?
I agree with Anna. I would, because I think women... I'm generalising here, but I think women tend to make better politicians than the men. Julia Gillard, to me, was quite an extraordinary individual, and I have never seen an individual, man, woman or animal, that was subjected to the issues that she was, particularly in relation to her gender and body shape and a number of other things. But it was very, very deliberate as a way of destabilising the government. And I understand, the nature of a hung parliament. I've been in a couple, and how the numbers. The game is to weaken the numbers so that you can change the government. But she went through some extraordinary abuses. I saw her cry once, but I think she was probably one of the strongest individuals that I've ever met, and I think she deserves great credit, not only for being the first woman Prime Minister, but the first woman Prime Minister in the circumstances such as it was, with the brilliance of Abbott in opposition, of course, and, as I said earlier, the constant niggling of her own people at her as well. And to be able to deal with that circumstance with a hung parliament in both houses was quite extraordinary, but she did it well, in my view.
Quick word from Louise Adler. We'll also hear from Annabel Crabb as well.
Well, it's wonderful to hear Anna exhorting young women to go into politics. I think it's fantastic, and to have Tony endorse that, given what you both endured and the kind of cost it exacted from both of you. But it seems to me very interesting, Anna, that you talked before about wanting to write the book so you could talk about how you felt. And the interesting thing for me is that when I talk to politicians about writing their memoirs, for example, the last thing they want to do when they're men is talk about how they feel. So I find that very interesting that you are the only one on this panel that's actually talked about how you feel in these moments. And I'm assuming that Peter, who's got time to add a chapter or two, will talk about how he feels.
At some point. Annabel, you've written on this issue extensively. What's your view on it? Do you feel conflicted about it?
I feel conflicted.
Well, because those women who are brave enough to step up often do go through an extraordinarily scarifying time, and it's a matter of whether you encourage them to do it.
Sure, but the hardest is the first, right? And I think Julia Gillard said that when she was gently relieved of the Prime Ministership. In fact, Talk about a first draft of history. Those remarks of hers that night are some of the most composed remarks I've ever seen from a person who has had a leadership position removed from them. She was really probably the best judge in that moment, and that was unusual. She said, gender was not about everything that happened to me. It explained some of what happened to me. And she also said it'll be easier for the next person. I do think number 2 is pretty important, right? You get this, every now and again you hear it, people saying like, well, we've had one woman as a Prime Minister now and it didn't work out, so it'll never happen again. I mean, people said that about you too. Oh, we've given a woman the job and no, we won't try that again for a while. But actually, in
3 years later,
Queensland, not only have you got another woman in the job, but you've got, for the first time, a state cabinet that is more women than men, which obviously makes for some really awkward moments. Which makes for some terribly awkward moments where you've got to like push all the men up the front of the photographs, like quick, where are the guys? You know, it doesn't look very balanced, which is, you know, I think a lovely moment.